That's not right. I was actually halfway through recording this video and then the camera went flat, so I'll have to do it all over again. So, and I was on a roll as well, and like what I was saying was just flowing, so I'll have to start over. Basically, I haven't been making videos for a little while now because I have I've been a bit unsure as to what I should be making a video about, really, like topic wise. And I know a lot of people like came for the subscribe, well, a lot. Like I don't know, like a lot of my content has been Nofap related stuff. And then the last video was about INFJ psychology kind of stuff, and I think I actually got some dislikes from that video. I don't know, maybe people were expecting Nofap and they didn't get it. I suppose, I'm not really sure. Or maybe people just dislike videos because that's what they think is the cool thing to do. I don't know, it's the internet, right? Do whatever you want. So I've been thinking a bit about how I should be aiming my content, I guess. What I'm going to talk about tonight is within the vein of Nofap, sort of, with INFJ related things as well. So it's similar to the last one. So if you're here for exclusive Nofap stuff, then you may be disappointed. If you're here just for INFJ stuff, you also might be a little bit disappointed. And if you don't know what any of that is, INFJ or Nofap, then you may be disappointed just entirely because you may be in the wrong environment. So, for me, the last few weeks have been a bit up and down with some personal stuff. I haven't really been in the headspace to be making videos or doing anything like that. Just trying to work through some things, some personal things. But that's life. You go through stages and you have seasons, both good and bad, and you can't have bad things without good things, right? If you had good things happening in your life all the time, there would be no such thing as there'd be no such thing as good things if good things are always happening, because you can't have good without bad, right? Like, it's a balance, right? They need to counteract each other. So, with that said and done, you can tell that I've already talked about this before, probably, from the last recording I've already done tonight. So, what I want to talk a bit about authenticity, and this does tie to Nofap, and it does tie to INFJ, so just hold in there. Let me try and get this explained, and hopefully the camera doesn't go flat again. So basically, something that I've been thinking about a little bit tonight, and even stuff that's come up over the last few weeks, has been in relation to authenticity, in terms of someone that is INFJ like myself. Authenticity in terms of how I'm being authentic and the people around me are authentic, is a big thing. It's a massive thing in terms of character, the person that you are, and it even ties to other things like your integrity and things like that. And for me, because I consider myself self-aware in terms of this sort of thing, a lot of trends and fashions and stuff like that I don't really adhere to, either at all or as quickly as other people. It seems that there are like different trends and stuff that happen in the world that just come out of nowhere, and people just, they just gravitate towards it because it's the happening thing. So for instance, when Pokemon Go, for instance, the app Pokemon Go was released, I think it was the last year or so. I never got that, and I never used it, but I know a lot of people used it, and it was a real, if anyone else that was familiar with Pokemon Go, that was like a very popular thing at the time. And I was like, for instance, I was never really a Pokemon person to start with, so it didn't have an appeal to me. But it was weird for me to sort of sit back and just see this trend and this popular thing just evolve so quickly, and then it just died all of a sudden. And like, I see that happen a lot with trends and fashions and things. Things happen quickly. People are just so attracted to it because they think it's the in thing, and then you know, a couple months later, it's dead in the water, right? And then they move on to the next thing, and it's strange for me to see that sort of thing happening. And I remember when I was in Melbourne, or Melbourne, if you want to pronounce it like that. In Australia, we just say Melbourne. Um, Last year, I remember I was walking down the streets of Melbourne, and there were people running up and down the streets with their phones playing Pokemon Go. Um, and that was a weird thing for me to see, and I knew what they were doing, and it was just a strange thing to see. And like now, no one talks about it. It's just not a happening thing, right? I don't see anyone walking around playing Pokemon Go. Um, and I suppose there are other things like Snapchat, for instance, or Instagram. I don't have those things. And I remember one of my friends was showing me how Snapchat works, and he put up his like camera. Maybe this is a thing with Instagram. I don't really know. And he was sort of showing me the different filters that you can get in Snapchat, for instance, and um, you know, filters that make the photo look better. And it was weird because I was on Facebook tonight, and maybe I'm sort of jumping around a bit, but it ties together. I was on Facebook tonight, and people posting photos, and they make a statement that when they post a photo, if it doesn't have a filter attached, they, you know, for some reason it's a big deal if there's no filter, you know, like hashtag no filter, or they say, well, here's a photo, here's a selfie with no filter, as if it's a big thing. And relating this back to me personally, when I look at something like that, like if I put a photo up on Facebook or whatever, I don't use filters like that to enhance it, other than maybe if it's a dark photo, I may, you know, brighten it or something so you can see what's happening in the photo, but that's about it. I don't actually enhance photos in that respect, and I suppose I never have. And even when back in the day where you had the camera that you would have to take a photo of, and then you get the negative developed at a camera shop, right? And then they give you like the physical photo. Like you couldn't even see what you were taking a photo of to start with, right? And it's not like when you got the photo, you couldn't enhance it anyway. And I suppose that's the mentality that I'm in. It's like I'll take a photo of where I'm at, and if that's how it comes up, then that's how it comes up. But it's weird that people were putting these filters and things like that onto their and photos of things in order to make it look better. But when I see that, I think, man, that for me feels really all inauthentic. So if I put a picture up that was enhanced, it wouldn't really feel like it would be a picture of me, if that makes sense. And when I see people doing these trends, like as I said, going back to things like Pokemon Go, or you know, using Snapchat filters, or just being caught up in these popular things, it's like people gravitate to these things. They think it's the right. They sort of wear it themselves, and then either they just forget about it within a couple months, such as Pokemon Go, or it becomes a norm for them, like Snapchat filters. Maybe I'm getting the wrong end of the stick with this, perhaps, but for me, it's just I see things come. I see how people sort of identify with it, and then either it doesn't become a part of their identity, like Pokemon Go, they lose it, and or like Snapchat, or like filters on photos, for instance, they sort of continue using something that may be like this enhancement thing. They will continue using that going forward. And like, I suppose either way, it feels like an inauthentic thing, holding on to something temporarily, or using something that isn't quite right, like that isn't naturally correct, if that makes sense. It's hard to explain it. So this is more of an INFJ thing. If anyone else that is INFJ gets what I mean, please, you know, tell me I'm not alone. Saying that though, in relation to Nofap, it's like the stuff that's involved with Nofap is that one of the aims is that you're supposed to become a more authentic person. And this is a conflict that I've had to experience myself, is that when you have PMO and you have like trying to fight it, and there's always this clash happening. I know for me anyway, is that you take something that I don't feel very authentic in myself. Like when I've been caught up with PMO stuff in the past or whenever, I never felt like it was my authentic self, right? And then I got my authentic self, and then I've got these two things that are just bashing up against each other. They're just colliding, and they're colliding. And for me, I feel really out of place. I don't feel like me because my actions are not representing who my true self actually is, if that makes sense. And that's a big thing, because I want to be authentic, and I've said before in older videos that it's important that I'm transparent, that the person that I am should be consistent the whole time. I shouldn't have this secret behavior or this secret personality that people don't know about, because then when I talk to someone, or I'm in a public setting, for instance, I'm not actually my authentic self because I have this other part of my personality that that isn't being integrated into my true self in this environment or this setting. And there's this clash, this inward fight, I suppose you could say. Sometimes I can be talking to people, or I can be around people, and I'm just very conscious of all the stuff that they know, all the stuff that I know about me, but they don't know about me, and stuff that I don't actually project to people, but that make up who I am, and that can be things like PMO, for instance, or Nofap, or whatever. It's not like you project that sort of stuff to everyone that you meet or in a public setting, right? So for me, it's like there's this struggle that I have of feeling really disjointed in a way in my personality, because there's behavior that you can have behavior that just isn't gelling. It just doesn't blend with who you are, or who your true self, if you want to say. You got this behavior that just doesn't blend with it, and you don't identify with it, but at the same time you sort of do identify with it, in certain respects. I suppose it depends on whether you want to wear that stuff for yourself. And for me, I try not, when it comes to things like PMO, I try not to wear that for myself. I try not to say, this is who I am. This is, I take responsibility for my actions, of course, like what you should do, but I don't wear it, and I don't wear it as a label and say, I am, this is the person that I am, and this, I am this person that does this sort of thing. I under, it's hard to explain. Is that I don't take that as part of my identity, because I know within my heart, I suppose you could say, that it isn't really who I am, because I know that things like PMO are not right. I suppose it comes to morals, I guess. If something doesn't gel with me in a moral standard or in a moral way, then I don't wear it. I can't, put it on myself. Yeah, I think that sort of explains it a little bit. But at the same time, I guess because I'm big on authenticity. When I am around people and I can sort of sense that they aren't authentic in themselves, if they're trying to portray an image, or if they're following fashions in order to fit in, things like, if I sort of see that the person can feel really, I suppose, two-dimensional to me. If I just see, of course, everyone has depth, right? And everyone is unique in a way. But when someone just mirrors all the trends and all the fashions and all the stuff that's happening, or if they just seem to assimilate themselves to, what's the happening thing, then I don't really connect with people like that, because they don't really. It's like they don't really know who they are in a way, in that they just take on board what's happening in their environment, and that they use their surroundings as their identity in a way. instead of being themselves and being, I suppose, happy with who they are, if that makes sense. This does kind of tie to INFJ and Nofap in a way. But yeah, I think that's what I wanted to talk about.